Hey everyone, welcome back to Ragtag Stacking. In today's video, I want to talk a little bit about inflation and why gold and silver haven't quite kept up with it as of late. If you've been listening to my channel for any amount of time, you do know that the two main reasons why I stack silver is as a hedge against inflation and also, as that physical savings account. So I do believe that it is a good hedge against inflation, but I don't have any defense for what it's been doing recently. We've been seeing the numbers, we've been seeing the inflation, we've been seeing the money creation, and all signs point to obviously inflation going through the roof. And with that, you would expect realistically silver and gold to be following that trajectory up. However, it has not seemed to be the case recently. Obviously, we've been seeing people with their prognostications and their predictions. And, you can kind of throw out the ones that are saying, oh yeah, silver is going to 1,000 by tomorrow. That's just, pumper garbage. But if you listen to some people, and, they're not giving predictions, they're just kind of seeing what's going on and giving their 2 cents. And they realistically think that, okay, silver and gold should not be here. They don't give a number where they think it should be. They just, with their knowledge, they know with everything that's been going on that the gold and silver prices, just something's wonky, something doesn't look quite right. Not that gold should be at 30 million, it's that gold just should not be at this level. Same with silver. So yes, there is a fair bit of difference between pumping and a realistic expectation of where you think the price should be. And that gets me to today's topic. I actually found it very interesting because it was going into some of the non-monetary reasons that are causing inflation. And the title of the article says why gold isn't keeping up with inflation. But you can lump silver in there with it as well. There's a lot of the stacking community that are expecting silver to be moving just as much as gold with the inflation. So yes, I thought this article was interesting because, like a lot of stackers in the community, one of the main reasons is that hedge against inflation. And this article can give you some of the reasons why silver and gold just haven't been keeping up and have not been performing the way that you believe it should be. So what I'm going to do now is jump onto the computer and show you this article. Okay, so this is the article here. It's on moneymetals.com. And the article is, why isn't gold going up with inflation? Now I'm going to go down here to skip over a little bit at the beginning just because it gets down to the point here. So I just skipped the first couple of paragraphs because the third here says, our point today is to present the reason why the price of gold has not gone up with the price of oil and other commodities. So basically, they're going to be going, you can see the title here says non-monetary causes of inflation. So they aren't going to be talking about what we all know, what we've all seen with the money supply. We all know they've just turned the money machine on and all this currency that has been flooded into the market. So with this, they're not necessarily focusing much on what we've been talking about with inflation, which is the money creation. So they're going over the non-monetary causes because they're trying to show here that the non-monetary causes are the reason why gold isn't quite keeping up with inflation. Because if you just look at it through the monetary causes, then you should say, well, since this is going on with the money, this should be going on with the gold. So here they're trying to show you some examples of the non-monetary reasons that cause inflation. That might not mean that gold will correlate with what's going on with the non-monetary causes. So it says the prices of commodities and manufactured goods alike have been rising due to non-monetary forces, as well as monetary, but as I said, they're just trying to prove the point here of the non-monetary forces. It says this is difficult to grasp from inside the mainstream paradigm, which holds the purchasing power is intrinsic to money. If prices are up across the board, then people think the currency has necessarily gone down. Now, you might notice that I keep reminding you that they're going after the non-monetary because in this article, it's written it's kind of suggesting that the monetary causes don't exist. You know what I mean? I don't think that was the main intent of the article, but it comes off that way that they're giving the non-monetary reasons, and that's the only reason for inflation. That kind of seems like a little bit of the article as I read on, but of course we do know that both things are affecting inflation. Then going in here it says, but of course there can be a case when goods generally become scarce. That is a case when the money has not gone down, when it really is prices that have gone up. And they give an example here. Suppose the government bore down on every kind of productive activity from drilling and mining to shipping and trucking, even to employing people. And the government outright stopped much of it. And what it did not stop entirely, it restricted and limited to a fraction of its previous level. Wouldn't you expect goods to become scarcer? And of course, they didn't exactly call it by name here, but they are referencing the, what we've been going through since March of 2020. There has been obviously some restrictions and some shutdowns on things, and that has, in turn caused a lot of supply chain issues that we're still dealing with today. So yes, like they're saying, everything that's been going on since, it's close to 2 years now, and just looking at the calendar now in November, we're almost through 2021 and things don't seem to be getting too much better heading into 2022. So we're gearing up to 2 years of this kind of new norm that we're dealing with. And that's definitely causing, an increase in the inflation. So obviously the monetary causes of inflation are bad enough, but when you compound it with the non-monetary causes that they're talking about here, then you can see that we're in a pretty bad place right now. It says non-monetary government interference causes inflation. So the above precisely describes what the government has done, and not only in the U.S. but all over the world. Trade wars and rising nationalism have played havoc with supply chains. Whenever I see the word havoc, I always associate the word wreaked with it, but here this is played. Companies have been forced to seek local subsidies or better and or cheaper goods made by firms and jurisdictions that their government has taxed, restricted, and threatened to do worse. In addition, it has forced companies to hoard components lest they be caught without a critical ingredient and be unable to complete their products. And in turn, with that hoarding of some of the parts by some of them, it says the automakers have run short of the chips they need to make cars. And then going down, it says so-called green policies have stopped production of the most useful forms of energy, while at the same forcing industries that use that no longer produced locally form of energy. For example, natural gas in Britain. Add trade war and nationalism to the toxic mix, and Britain is struggling to find enough natural gas to import. Prices of energy and even food will skyrocket. Yes, they're talking about green policies here. It is going to be disruptive, even though green policies I do think are good, trying to get better forms of energy that are better for the planet. But when you think of all the other forms of energy that you have, all of the big oil companies, all of the big natural gas companies. They're well established. They already have the means of production to get energy produced on the scale that's needed to get to places like to run Europe and Asia, to run the world. We're not there with the green, So unfortunately, introducing some of the green policies into some places and kind of scaling back the other ones are going to, unfortunately have this problem with, having to import more gas because they're not producing as much in Britain. So I can see where they're coming from there, that it's going to be a problem with that. But then it's like a catch-22. You don't want to completely get rid of the green because it's slowing down this stuff now, because in the long term, the green could be the solution to everything. Being as it's in its infancy, it seems like it's kind of getting in the way a little bit. Lockdown whiplash causes inflation. It says lockdown whiplash compounds this problem. Shipping and logistics all over the globe is messed up in numerous ways, some obvious, some not. Containers and even ships are often not in locations where they are needed, so manufacturers are piling up goods in warehouses, unable to send them to customers. This is the obvious part, and I keep seeing these things on the news about all of the ships and everything waiting along the California coast. They see it along there, just trying to get into the port to unload their goods. They're talking to local businesses that are a little infuriated because they can literally see their stuff on a ship out there, and they're talking and just jokingly about just going out on a boat and going through the containers to get some of the stuff, because they've been waiting for weeks for their products that they can literally see out on the water. I'm just going to skip over the rest of the lockdown whiplash one because it's getting more into the central planning of ports and transportation, because that definitely seems to be a problem with well, all the ports around the world, it seems, and it's definitely causing a lot of the inflation problems. It says, did we mention that government central planning of ports and transportation infrastructure has restricted capacity and interference with efficiency in many other ways? For example, slowing the adoption of new technologies to the port. The net result is the government has added many useless ingredients to shipping and logistics, the cost of which is included in many of the things we buy at retail. Anti-pipeline policies has limited the flow of oil from Canada. Too many ships waiting offshore LA has meant they are drifting or attempting to anchor outside the limited number of anchor slots. One such attempt severed an oil pipeline. This will not only further reduce the flow of energy to where it is needed, but probably serve the anti-energy demagogues and politicians with ready-made excuses to ban the next pipeline that comes up for permit. So yes, that is a big problem. Obviously, a ship that is waiting to port because it's backed up because of all of these problems that have been going on with the ports and the transportation, they go to anchor and they mess up a pipeline. You can't, if someone put that in a movie, I wouldn't believe it. It's so unbelievable. It says, what your dollars are buying more of now. So it says, the dollar is buying as much as it did before. It's just that many of the things it is buying are not the things that consumers know about or want. And going down here to the true cause of inflation right now. It says the cause is a barrage of production killing regulations. If the government wanted industry to produce less, to make goods scarcer, to drive up the cost of living and force down the standard of living, then it could not have devised a more effective plan. And it gets away with it more easily because people blame the Fed and the purchasing power of the dollar. And I mean, this guy's kind of going out of his way to praise the Fed here, which I find very, very... So I've mistakenly stumbled upon the one Federal Reserve apologist on the internet, apparently. It says, the purchasing power of the dollar makes perfect scapegoat. Says the purchasing power of the dollar makes a perfect scapegoat. If this was the root cause, then what does every voter, wage earner, and retiree on fixed income do? He blames greedy corporations, greedy bosses, and greedy COLA committees to not give him a raise. He thinks this is a grand conspiracy by which the rich get richer at his expense. I agree with a lot of what this guy is presenting when he's giving the non-monetary inflation reasons. But when he goes on and, he's basically defending the Fed. I found the first Federal Reserve apologist on the internet, apparently. So I like this article that's going over the non-inflation reasons, but I don't like the fact that he's completely dismissing and poo-pooing the monetary ones. You can go ahead and point out the non-monetary issues, but don't bring up the monetary issues because your point is the non-monetary issue. The only time he brings up monetary issue is to bash it, almost saying that it's not a factor, which is completely untrue. Two things can be true at the same time. Just because you're making one point, it does not mean the other point doesn't exist. And that's a lot of the problem that we're seeing today is people think it's just concrete one answer, or they think that what they believe is the only answer. So again, this article is good, but a lot of this, defending of the Fed, I could do without. And then getting down to the conclusion here, what about the price of gold and non-monetary inflation? It says, meanwhile, those who bought gold based on the premise that gold keeps up with inflation are also upset, not at greedy bosses, but at greedy bullion banks, whom they are convinced are selling gold short in order to keep the gold owners from realizing their just profits. But seen in the light of the above conversation, the promise of gold and inflation is not even wrong. Of course, the government imposed cost embedded in everything from oil to imported bicycles have nothing to do with gold. Gold is not shipped by ship. Gold is money and is the only way to measure the dollar. The price of the dollar measured in gold was 17.6 milligrams on Friday. The price of the dollar is not falling. The government created shortages are not a monetary phenomenon. That is not to say that it cannot become a monetary phenomenon. If the crisis forces enough companies to go out of business and default on their debts, then it could cause a banking solvency crisis. That could cause people to dump dollars, to hold money. Money is what you hold when you don't want to be a creditor. Money is gold. So yes, that's the bulk of the article. There is a little bit left at the bottom there. I will leave a link in the description if you would like to read through the entire article. As I said, I skipped through a little bit, skimmed through some of the things, but I did hit on a lot of the major points of the article. There you go, that was the article, and yeah, I was getting a little bit irritated when he did keep bringing up the monetary issues, because the whole point of the article was to delve into the issues, you know, beyond monetary. But anytime he did bring it up, it was almost as if it was dismissive and people are wrong, and you know, the money creation that we've been seeing has no factor in this at all. He could have gone the entire article without mentioning any of that stuff, because that was the point of it. But if he did have to mention it, he didn't need to basically outright dismiss it as something that is a key factor into what's going on with the inflation. But with that little nitpick out of the way, I did enjoy the article because it did bring to light some of the non-monetary issues, and they are a real problem. But let me know what you think. As I said, I thought this was a pretty interesting article, just trying to go over some of the other reasons that are causing inflation, and just trying to give somewhat of a reason or an explanation why gold and silver haven't quite been keeping up with it. Because I do know that a lot of stackers have voiced their opinions of being quite, upset, or, just irritable at what's been going on, and just looking at the news and wondering why their silver and gold just hasn't moved. And, it's a long game. Of course, when you see things and you're expecting one thing and get another, it's only natural to be upset. And, I thought that this article kind of did a pretty good job trying to explain some of the non-monetary reasons, because, we're all looking at the monetary causes of inflation and expecting there just to be a direct correlation of, gold and silver going up. And, like I said, that's just not happening. But anyways, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you come back for the next one. Thank you.